A leader, wait, you went too fast.
Oh, yeah.
A leader of Black Lives Matter.
Yes, the grassroots element.
Yes. Came and protested outside their own chair's house.
Got on a plane, flew from the West Coast, came to my house, and decided to scream at a house where my son was alone inside. First of all, I DM'd Lil Yachty, by the way. He hasn't gone back to me.
Okay.
So I did take a moment. I DM'd him so I could give him an opportunity to provide you with receipts.
Yes.
First of all, Black Lives Matter is not a scam. And I was so disappointed to hear you rattle off some of the misinformation and disinformation that has destroyed the integrity of this organization without any proof. We chose you not because you're trying to come here to be successful, because you already are, despite what you've been through.
I love it.
And you can take all that you've learned to ensure that you are legitimately communicating and building programs that our people are going through and that we need.
Hey, family, welcome to Jamal Bryant's Let's Be Clear podcast. I am a child of the NAACP. For 5 years, I was the National Youth and College Director. I am a student of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference that was formed by Martin Luther King Jr. as an amalgamation of Black churches. But I am a fan of Black Lives Matter. Today, we have our chair lady with us to give us the clear understanding of who they are and what they represent. I'm grateful to have chair lady Cicley Gay.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. No, I'm here. We got to jump in. We got a whole lot of ground to cover.
We do.
Whole lot of stuff
I'm here to be very clear and tell the truth about Black Lives Matter, past, present, and future.
Okay. I want to take it to the streets.
Let's do it.
What are we going to do about the street in D.C.?
Listen.
Donald Trump, for those of you who've been under a bubble, the administration alluded to, they didn't even directly threaten the mayor or the city of D.C., saying that Black Lives Matter Boulevard, Street, Plaza, if they didn't get rid of it, they were going to lose $1 billion of funding for streets and highways. Now, 48 hours later, I thought they were just going to paint over.
They didn't even give people time to go and take a picture, you know? And it cost $600,000 to undo what had been done. So you can't get a pothole fixed, right? You can't get a light replaced, but apparently that becomes a priority.
But my question is, what was the message they were giving? That they didn't roll tar over it or black paint? That they brought in jackhammers, like they were unearthing a statue or a monument. As the chair, tell me what you were feeling, thinking, and breathing watching this happen in real time.
I mean, I think there was a collective disbelief, particularly about the pace by which they destroyed this. They've been talking about it for years. And Muriel Browser has been standing 10 toes down in terms of ensuring that Black lives visibly mattered on those streets, but her hands were tied. Right? And so I thought, as I started seeing and started hearing the comments from folks, is that this was painful, but it's not unfamiliar, because the reality is there are people who believe in white supremacist ideology that love to show us how racist they are as blatantly as they can. It's signaled to us, right? My son, who now is 29 years old, my oldest son, he sent me a text and he said, is there any other way to say Black lives don't matter to them than to destroy this, right? And I wondered why people were in the comments and so upset about it. Even those who have doubts about the legitimacy of Black Lives Matter, the organization, were upset about this. It was painful. It hurt, but that was exactly what they intended it to do. They've been wanting to do this for a while, and they're proud. It's a signal about where we are right now, what they can do, and what's possibly to come if we don't stand up.
Well, what does it mean for the movement for that to happen in such blatant terms in broad daylight? Is that the dog whistle to say, don't even think about it? Chair lady, I've been really in pause because I'm mobilizing this target fast. And a lot of people are saying we need to picket, we need to protest. And I'm pumping the brakes saying, hey, I'm not sure if protesting in this hour is the most prudent thing because when Donald Trump was in office the last time, he wanted to open fire on Black Lives Matter protesters in D.C.
That's right.
And ladies and gentlemen, the military had to stop the president.
That's right. And we're looking at students, for instance, in Columbia, at Columbia University right now, who are being either accosted, we call it kidnapped, from their homes because of protest. And so I think strategy is important. I always think that protest, I don't consider myself an activist in the traditional sense of the word. I am a nonprofit and philanthropic expert. I've worked for nonprofits for 20 years.
Wow.
But I believe protest and agitation and disruption is an important component to change. But a lot of times we got to protect ourselves in every way. And we have to also recognize that strategy is important. Sometimes real G's move in silence, and we don't have to necessarily tell them what we're doing. And so for me, someone who has worked behind the scenes for many years, that resonates with me, because oftentimes we're telling them to play before it's even time. And they're 2 steps ahead of us, particularly now that they're in positions of power. So I get it. And it's wise. And I love that you're having real hard conversations about how we move, because collective action and togetherness is more important now than it's ever been.
One of the hardest military exchanges that America had was Afghanistan, when they were fighting terror cells. And the issue, Chair Lady, with terror cells is they didn't have uniforms. They didn't have titles. So they were plainclothes paramilitary. So they didn't know who was walking to the marketplace with a bomb strapped to their back. One of the things they, I think, sent alarm to the system with Black Lives Matter is different from our traditional organizations. People weren't wearing a BLM T-shirt.
That's right.
We weren't having the meetings in the church fellowship hall to figure it out. But to your disadvantage, there were people saying they were Black Lives Matter.
That's right.
Who we didn't even know existed in the earth.
And
you were going to cities.
Right?
You were going to cities. There had 3 different Black Lives Matter chapters in one city. How do you organize an organic organization?
I love that question. You are absolutely right. When the name was first entered into the lexicon of the vernacular of the United States, when the hashtag went viral in 2013 after the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murder, the original founders, they wanted a leader-full model, not a leaderless model. And unfortunately, there was no thought about organizing infrastructure. And so the name was not copyrighted. Right?
Wow.
Right. And so when I came, I was shocked to find that out even to this day. So in 2022, when I came on as a board chair, we hired trademark attorneys, and we thought about how can we ensure that the chapters that exist, and there are thousands of them across the world, are at least aligned fundamentally in the values and goals. And some of them, to the tune of a distribution of $35 million, which this foundation has given out, have received grants. But there are others. You and I could start our own chapter tomorrow. And the U.S. patent attorneys and trademark associations, the government has said absolutely no. This word, this phrase is not owned by anyone.
Wow.
And therefore, while we have the majority of the assets, we do have service marks, and all this is kind of wonky in terms of legitimacy and ownership. It was not done in such a way to protect the integrity of the brand. And it's challenging, of course, when people decide to go rogue and do whatever they want to do. But I also want to big up a lot of the organizations that are doing the right work, right? There are many of them who are very much aligned with the mission and passion and purpose of Black Lives Matter. But we now are a foundation. And so we need infrastructure. We have to own our brand, and we have to ensure that we're very clear about what our purpose is and what our place is, so we don't further dilute it because of the way that it was not owned and set up from the beginning.
As a chair, are you concerned at all dealing with Columbia University? The edict by the president that if you protest on a college campus and an immigrant, you can be deported. If you're a resident, you are expelled permanently from that institution.
That's right.
Is there anything in the back of your mind or the front of your mind that under this administration Black Lives Matter could be listed as a terrorist group.
Absolutely. I mean, House Bill 9495 at the end of last year was introduced and passed, and now it's slightly stalled, but it's going to go to the Senate. And it basically says that this administration can strip away the nonprofit 501c3 status of any organization that they deem terrorist. And Black Lives Matter is going to be at the top of that list should that pass, right? And so we have to find ways to protect ourselves. We have to find ways to protect our assets. We do have to find ways to ensure that we're not on the top of those lists by virtue of not necessarily shaking things up and showing that we are a legitimate organization that's not just here to antagonize.
Yes.
But we're going to be a threat because every time there's Black progress, there's white outrage, right? Ooh. And it was DEI, it was woke before that, it was BLM before that. These are just catchphrases for Black.
Yeah.
And whether or not I'm sitting here and talking about building a legitimate nonprofit organization, the phrase Black Lives Matter is going to trigger people who really at the core of who they are racist and believe in white supremacist ideology and don't believe that we deserve to say that phrase, organize under it, lead under it, or demand it in the streets or the state houses. They're coming for us, and we've just got to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I teach at Payne Theological Seminary in Ohio, and I teach about to doctoral students. Black Lives Matter was so significant because outside of Marcus Garvey, Black Lives Matter is the only civil rights movement that wasn't birthed out of the church. It is the only civil rights movement that doesn't have a faith leader at the helm.
Yeah, that's right.
You add on top of that, Chairwoman, the disconnect on why Black churches were slow to get behind Black Lives Matter is because it was formed by sisters out of the LGBTQ community.
Yes, that's right.
How does the Black church support a train that has already left the station?
Oh, no one has ever asked me that question. I am a woman of faith.
Yes.
I know where my source comes from.
Yeah.
I personally understand that my steps have been ordered. Yeah. I make absolutely no apology for the divine appointment that has been over my life.
Yes.
I am a miracle in so many ways, and I have a story to attest to that.
Wow.
And so we want to ensure that our leaders, whether we are considered leaders in the church or not, are spirit and faith filled, and are building bridges and bonds with people who actually care about the liberation of Black people. The expanse of Black life does extend to the LGBTQI community.
Period.
It does extend to the faith community. So for us to be an organization that says that we don't just think about Black death anymore. We are thinking about Black life, literally, and Black love. We will always, always fight against state-sanctioned violence. But this new wave of leadership is about ensuring that we are building bridges instead of walls and bonds that don't break. And so the faith community is absolutely invited into our fold, but also we have a responsibility to demonstrate that we can be trusted, right? We may not fall in line. There's still very much a radical nature of how we were established, and that exists today. The Democrats and the Republicans can get it. As far as we're concerned, we are a nonprofit organization, and we hold that very true to our core. But I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't open it up to the faith community and leaders who have changed my life and the lives of Black people and say, this is a place for you too, and we need you.
No, it's critical. I am thinking if this bill passes and Black Lives Matter is placed on that list, I am already doing the forward thinking, how do Black churches stand in allegiance, provide a place of covering, and be sanctuary without fear of their 501c3 being.
I mean, we're not going to stop, right? They're going to continue to try to knock down every opportunity that we have to empower and embolden ourselves. You know that old quote. It's like first they came for them, and now they're coming for you, right? So they're not just telegraphing; they are demonstrating. They have given us the playbook, and they are perfectly executing it based on what they've said they're going to do.
Story.
And so you're right. A nonprofit that might be radical is first, but a nonprofit in their mind that's a threat because it's serving the needs of Black people and Black communities, the church, is absolutely next.
I am very concerned and curious. Black Lives Matter, I had a conversation with old civil rights guards who were highly critical of Black Lives Matter. And I said to them, naming remaining nameless, is that you have to grade Black Lives Matter on a curve because the civil rights organization, young people, really were trained at the feet of HBCUs with professors, where they argued ideology and did praxis before they went out to demonstrate. Black Lives Matter really formed together through the sacred art of social media. It says, hey, we're going to be downtown at 2:00.
That's right. That's literally, yes.
Everybody who want to come,
let's do it.
Come and turn your camera on.
Yes.
And so they did on-the-ground training.
Yes.
And so because of that, we had some friendly fire that took place because we were marching with people who we didn't know, whose patterns, and don't know. How do we build the plane while it's in the air?
Yeah. And we still are. I mean, I'm here to not necessarily apologize for the way in which some of the things happened before I got here, but take accountability where it's necessary. We're still trying to get it right. I'm still trying to work with folks who frankly said, we're not inviting Black Lives Matter to the table because y'all gonna knock it over when you get there.
Right.
I come from a traditional foundation background. I believe in traditional philanthropy as it relates to moving resources to Black communities. I believe that is my gift. I've worked for nonprofits, building nonprofit organizations for over 20 years.
Beautiful.
And the NAACP Legal Defense Fund was one of my clients. I've worked with traditional civil rights organizations, learning how to do that organizing work. But I also understand that 27 million people who rose up and marched deserve a seat at that table too, right? I am leading this organization, but I am not the one who solely built it. And so it's a delicate dance to ensure that we are holding truth to power, leaving no democracy on the table, keeping the radical fundamental nature of who we are, because this foundation was built by the people and I owe that to them. Right? I can't come in and say, we're a completely different organization, even though you're the one who marched and you're the one who funded it.
Right.
But there are some lessons from those civil rights leaders. There are some learnings and teachings. I sit at the feet of Susan L. Taylor. She is my mentor from Essence Magazine.
Beautiful.
And I learn every day about how to build this thing so it doesn't break.
Yeah.
And that is the cross that I bear every day, trying to figure out how to do both.
Yeah. I understand on the 50-yard line some of the angst because you all came in like a world-class wrecking ball out of nowhere. Within 3 years, you all raised more money than the historic institutions did, quite frankly, because you have boots on the ground.
That's right.
And you are modeling the work. So before we start doing a lost episode of Blues Clues on where it went, we got to first give high commendation that corporations and individuals saw something in it.
That's right.
That said it was worthy of investment. Yeah. And they hopscotched over some other people who were already at the table. Yep. Not in folding chairs, but in lazy boy recliners.
Yeah. Real comfortable.
Yeah, no. So I want to first say that there was something that was worthy of that investment before we go into the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah. I love it.
On where did it go?
I mean, I think about the demand and the rallying cry, right? And the level of empowerment that we felt when we boldly came together to declare that Black Lives Matter, and then found that whether they are corporate or white or other races, allies came to the table and said, you know what, you're right. And we recognize that some of it at this point was performative, and we're trying to hold people to account.
Target.
Right? Facts. We've elevated that boycott in every way that we can, right? Yes. We know some of that was performative and popular at that point. But there is no doubt that this meant something to people. And it still does, even through the midst of controversy and chaos. I still have a tremendous responsibility to do this right. People are counting on me. There are people who have said, "Hey, you're all we got. Like, what do we do now, right? Like, get this right in terms of infrastructure, so that stuff doesn't get in the way, and we can move forward."
Yeah, I appreciate. I've been watching you, as I said before we got on camera. Your interviews, you've been talking right to the point. Holding accountability matters. Black people are the most unforgiving, forgiving people on the planet. How does Black Lives Matter at this point reset the table to say, hey, we didn't do it all right, but this is Dr. King's last book, The Urgency of Now.
That's right. That's right.
And so how do we reset it for what we are up against in this administration?
Yeah, I think first I was on a call with a bunch of leaders, a very quiet one, and we know many of these are happening now, and I'm glad for that, where there have been antagonists within the movement.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Bryant, I've had a Black Lives Matter chapter leader who came and protested at my house, right? So
a leader, wait, you went too fast.
Oh, yeah.
A leader of Black Lives Matter.
Yes, the grassroots element.
Yes. Came and protested outside their own chair's house.
Got on a plane, flew from the West Coast, came to my house, and decided to scream at a house where my son was alone inside, right? And my neighbors were like, you're Black Lives Matter, she's Black Lives Matter. I mean, white supremacy loves this. I mean, that Assata Shakur chant, when we fight, we win, that doesn't work when we're talking about Black people.
Ooh.
And so I was shocked. I mean, white supremacy wins when we fight, right?
Yeah.
So I was shocked to find, I was ready for the white folks.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for a Black woman to be outside of my house screaming about $90 million.
Can we pause right here? Can we pause right here for just one moment? Because I'm an 80s baby. And so when we talk about Black on Black crime, we're usually talking about guns, inner city violence, and selling drugs to each other. I was morally outraged that the Trumpsters who were vilifying me were Black ones.
Listen.
It wasn't the white ones from Kentucky.
Yeah, I was ready. I'm like, I don't know where the arrows are coming from, and what are you talking about? And then it's fascinating. The chant that she was shouting was Black Lives They Matter here. I said, your chant doesn't even work. Like, this doesn't even make sense. And what are you trying to get out of this?
Right.
Because the reality is, the more you do this, the longer I'm staying. Because I've got to right the ship, and I've got to prove you wrong.
Yes.
And so all those bricks do when they're thrown against me is cause me to build a bigger podium and get out and recognize that I have a responsibility to tell the truth.
Yes.
And so to answer your question, we were working behind the scenes and having conversations. And one of the leads, I want to shout out Tamika Mallory.
Yes.
She said, now is not the time for us to be divided. And all the nonsense about who has done what and how people have been fighting amongst Black people, we are at war as Black people, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
And if we can't get it right collectively together, then we certainly can't get it right against white supremacy. And so I think the answer is, first of all, give me the opportunity to tell you the truth. There is a transparency center that we have built on the website as a new board that tells you where the money has gone. Wow. I am doing interviews like this.
What's
to
the
answer
website?
Question. It's blacklivesmatter.com.
Okay, yes.
/transparency center.
Yes.
We put our 990s, which are the tax forms that are required by nonprofit organizations that itemize where the first swath of $35 million went, how we paid for administration and who we pay. And then we took it a step further and we said, you know what, that's not good enough. These 990s, they're complicated. People don't understand. We're going to get independent external auditors, and we're going to come in and give them the books. When I came on board, we were under investigation by 4 different states' attorney generals. Ooh. The organization had never filed taxes, Dr. Bryant. And for people who know about nonprofits, you get $90 million. You become a public charity. You are required to report. You don't have to pay taxes, but you sure do have to file and tell the IRS how you're spending your money. So the first thing I did, people said, what are you doing? Was make sure that the books were clean and make sure that the IRS and attorney generals were on our backs, because that is the way that they found to destroy Black organizations from the inside and the outside. So we had to make sure to get our stuff right.
So how did y'all list that Malibu mansion?
Yes, let's talk about it.
You got to talk about that.
Studio City. Yes. It's called the Creator's House.
Yes.
And I will say that there were leaders of this organization that I respect and honor. They had no idea that money was going to come in. They were doing liberation work on the ground.
Yes.
But they never expected to need to build a legitimate nonprofit organization, right? And there are decisions that they made that I probably wouldn't have made. I'm just going to tell the truth. No. They were all legal decisions as far as I know, and the books that I've, behind the hood. But they're decisions that maybe I wouldn't have made. I mean, we've talked potentially about buying a housing development as opposed to one house, right? Or a triage facility.
Yeah.
However, I will also say that I believe that owning land and property as a Black person is a revolutionary act. And unfortunately, the negative press came out before the truth around the intention of that property. It is in Studio City. When I came on board, I went there with lawyers and accountants and security to ensure that I could take a look at it and find out what this really was. Dr. Bryant, there are 21 parking spaces at that facility. There is a studio in the back. It was actually owned by a pastor of a megachurch.
Wow.
And he used to film out of that space.
Yeah.
No one lives there except for the people who have been staying there because they've experienced houselessness from the Altadena fire, for instance.
Wow.
Since we came on board, we opened up that what we call the Creator's House. The intention was to be a safe space for leaders, a headquarters, right? It was a space to own and create our own content. I love the story I've heard about lions not rising up to tell their stories, and therefore hunters get the credit. And so arts as a strategic pillar is very important to us, owning the story as the media is dismantling it. So the original people who bought it, they intended for it to be a safe house for us. And unfortunately, the negative press preceded that. But since I've been on board and the new board has come together, we have opened it up and had a healing space for over 150 families. We had it opened up to an organization just a few months ago called Reach LA that used it for a conference space. We brought together for the first time HBCU students. They're called our HBCU ambassadors. And they told us what students need. And because of that, we started a student solidarity fund. This is all in the last 2 years, where we started giving direct payments to students for food and clothing and housing. That came from the sanctity and safe space of the Creator's House that is protected and owned by us and, frankly, has accumulated value. It has equity, right?
Yes.
And we are able to grant make off the equity of that property. And so when you think about owning, right, your own name and your own brand and your own legacy and your own work, it was absolutely a wise investment from the perspective of Black ownership. It just, in the news and the media, was reframed in such a way to make it seem like somebody just went on a shopping spree and bought a mansion in Malibu and had no interest in utilizing it for Black people. That's what we're using it for.
Wow. There's a whole lot of rap beef right now. Kendrick Lamar against Lil Drake. 50 Cent against
My sons
Rick
are going to
Ross.
love this question. I don't know where you're going, but I'm going to channel them and make sure that I answer it appropriately.
Oh, you ready for it? You got Kendrick Lamar against Drake. You got 50 Cent against Rick Ross. And now Black Lives Matter against Lil Yachty.
Come on.
So Lil Yachty, in an interview, said about a week ago that Black Lives Matter is a scam.
Yeah.
And there was no pushback.
None.
From the Black people interviewing them.
Yeah.
Tell me, one, this is for the very first time, it's a brand new season. I've never asked any of my guests to do it. I want you to look in that camera and tell Lil Yachty what you thought about it.
Oh, this is deep. First of all, I DM Lil Yachty, by the way. He hasn't gone back to me.
Okay.
So I did take a moment. I DM'd him so I could give him an opportunity to provide you with receipts.
Yes.
First of all, Black Lives Matter is not a scam. And I was so disappointed to hear you rattle off some of the misinformation and disinformation that has destroyed the integrity of this organization without any proof. I actually took my youngest son to come see you in concert at the University of Kansas, where I went to school. And so I was disappointed that you, as a leader of not only our young people, but someone whose music I enjoyed, has not done your homework and your research. I would love to have a conversation with you about how this movement of 27 million people is legit. It is here. I am leading it in such a way to ensure that we are here for the long run. There is nothing scammy about the liberation of Black people. And I wish before you spoke, you would reach out to the leaders of the organization and tell the truth, because we have work to do and we can't do it divided.
I love it. I want to make an official invitation to Lil Yachty to come on this platform and for us to have a closed, open door conversation between he and yourself for round 2. Y'all stay tuned. Let's
I'm in your DMs. I'm in your DMs.
Check your DMs, man. We done slid up in the DMs.
That's right.
When George Floyd was killed, it sparked something. Not nationwide, globally. I was speaking in London maybe 3 months after everything happened, and I was amazed how many diasporic people were walking up to me, lifting up a fist saying Black Lives Matter. Have you, I know it's been a short period of time, Have you been able to put your arms around the global impact of Black Lives Matter?
I love this question. We are technically the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation.
Yes.
I mentioned at the very beginning that when this organization was started, there was no opportunity to copyright.
Yes.
And so there are grassroots organizations and chapters working under the moniker, but our charter, our board documents, policies, and procedures actually require us to work globally. One of our board members actually just came back from the UK.
Wow.
I've done quite a bit of work in Africa. Another one of our board members just came back from Canada. The Black Lives Matter Canada chapter has been phenomenal in terms of working with us and ensuring that we understand the needs of Black people across the diaspora and across the world. We recognize that we have a lot of work to do, but also what we're learning is that outside of the United States, the Black folks there are not about this nonsense.
Yes.
When I come into a room and talk to them, they are proud and grateful, and they are honest, and they are holding me accountable, but they don't spend time wasting time about conversations that have been debunked around mansions.
Yes.
They're ready to do the work. I don't know if the media has not gotten to them in the same way. And so we are opening our arms and ensuring that not only we are not just investing across the world in the lives of Black people, but we're learning from Black people and what they need. Our challenges around race and discrimination and poverty certainly are not limited to the United States. And so while people don't necessarily understand that this is not the only place we work, it absolutely is. And we're doing that across the globe.
Yeah. One of the missteps or mistakes, I think, of the last 20 years around civil rights and Black issues has been limited in large measure around violence and aggressive policing. Black Lives Matter, I want to know where the organization is in terms of immigration policies that impact Black people that are not being discussed in the arena nationally. So you're dealing with 500,000 Haitians who no longer have protection. In the middle of the night, Trump announced a travel ban on places like Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cameroon, Uganda, folks that have no nuclear weapons. They barely got rubber bullets. And so,
other than the threat of the color of their skin. Right?
Yes. Or the money grab for the minerals they got.
That's right.
Where is Black Lives Matter, or is this an area in your purview around immigration under this administration?
Yeah, we've actually spoken out quite a bit around immigration and immigration policy. We are a nonpartisan organization, so we actually are looking directly at policy and not necessarily at individuals, although the polarizing nature of politics now sometimes makes that difficult.
Yes.
If I could just take a step back, I think one of the distinctions in this new way of leadership is that we are not only focused on Black death, and that's what people know Black Lives Matter for. We are now focused on Black life and Black love. And what that means is being strategic about the areas of emphasis. And so we have 6 pillars, 6 strategic pillars that we built out. One of them is education and research. One is the arts. One is frontline organizing, healing justice, culture, and policy.
Yes.
And so we are working very, very quickly and swiftly. We have legal advisors on Capitol Hill. We have a sister PAC, a political action committee that actually invests in candidates who are doing the right thing for Black people in terms of legislation and the way that they vote. But we're building out our policy arm as swiftly as they're changing policy. But for the first time, as an organization, we're being strategic about that being one of our pillars of investment. And we've got some ideas, some partnerships, some grants that we've actually given out to ensure that we continue to do that. And we're still mobilizing and galvanizing through social media. I mean, that's our origin. There are over 3 million people who are following us on Instagram alone, waiting for a rallying cry.
How many?
3.3 we still have on Instagram alone. Yeah, waiting.
You got to do a collab post with me.
Come on. We got it, right? Let's utilize that. People who, some of them are in the comments just to cause chaos and nonsense.
That comes with it.
But many others who are still waiting for the call to action. They're still hoping that we get our stuff together as it relates to the books and still are a part of this movement because they birthed and built it. And so the short short answer to your question is yes, we are looking at immigration. Yes, we are looking at allies who are focusing on Black people who are being discriminated against and not allowed to either stay or come here because of the color of their skin and the resources that their countries provide. And that is directly under our policy arm, which is under our new strategic plan.
I want you to go back to one of the pillars, which is the arts.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's never been a time in our collective liberation that art has been disconnected from who we are, from the songs of our enslaved ancestors to the Harlem Renaissance, right? To the fact that every time we go to a march or a rally, there are freedom songs or chants, right? And so we believe, and this is part of why we call it the Creator's House, that we have to own and tell our own stories. We cannot allow people to tell them for us. And so we have actually been doing grant making directly to nonprofit organizations who are focused on ensuring that we own our art, we protect our art, and that the legacy and history of this not only organization but movement is legitimately told through stories of song and art. It's interesting. I don't know if you knew this, probably not, but on the board, each of us have strategic pillars of focus and interest, and mine are education and the arts.
I did.
My oldest son is a theater kid.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
a drama mama, and so I've always really been passionate about art as a tool for social justice and social change. And we're just doing that in a way that is at the forefront, not only through our own programs, but strategic investments. I've got a wonderful grantee project that we've just awarded $100,000 to called the Astor Project, that not only is creating a mural right in Atlanta for those who have been impacted by state-sanctioned violence, but they're doing research in the community to see if the visualization of the real stories of Black people who have been killed changes the way they feel about police violence. That's what art can do, and that's why we're investing in it.
Yeah, in the 80s, C. Dolores Tucker and Calvin Butts did a big protest against the violence and the vitriol in rap music. Anthropologists said if you ever want to know the mind of a people, listen to the music they listen to. And so there is not much on mainstream media that celebrates Black life, but there's a lot of music that is the soundtrack to death. Is under your area of arts, do you think that we're going to have a revisit to the industry to say, hey, we need a different kind of sound to be birthed?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you asked that question because given the conversation we just had about Lil Yachty, we put out a statement. I mean, Fox News immediately reposted him.
Of course.
And that's a sign right there. The particular commentator that did has not been one who's been for Black people. So if you continue to be a mouthpiece for them, then that tells you, right then whose side you're on. But interestingly enough, we actually put out a statement, talked about the exploitative nature oftentimes of hip hop rap music or music that is pushed to the Black community. So I think you're absolutely spot on in terms of elevating artists who are empowering us, but also recognizing that there are gifts as it relates to artists. There is music that shakes us up, right? Intentionally. I mean, we saw Kendrick's brilliance at the Super Bowl and how he integrated themes, but also told the truth about our stories and who we are. I think we do have to hold people accountable, no matter what their race or color or creed, if they are doing things to exploit Black people or to demonize or weaponize or harm Black women in particular. And we will continue to do that. But we do honor artistry and we recognize the power of artistry and the legacy of artistry. Sometimes we may not see the value when we're in it. So it's another delicate dance, right? I don't want to sound like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth.
No.
Right? I want to hold.
You're bilingual.
Yeah, you gotta be. You gotta be. Because, but that, I mean, I've said often, love is my superpower, Dr. Bryant. It is.
Wow.
I am a mother who has raised 3 Black sons in these United States of America without the benefit of a partner.
Yes.
And without love and the love of my community, I never could have done that. They could never be as successful as all 3 of them are.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
And I just put one foot in front of the other, looking for money in couch cushions and trying to do the work of people. I've never worked a corporate job in my life. This country, this community has given me a lot, and therefore I want to be a good ancestor. I know I drink from wells I did not dig, and I have a lot to give. And so I approach this work from a place of love. It is naturally who I am. So I can see you as an artist, Lil Yachty. I can respect your art. I can admit that I took my son to your concert, while at the same time, I can hold you accountable when you become a tool of white supremacy, right? And I can tell you the truth about how this is not helping us and how we need to do better. I'm going to call you in instead of necessarily calling you out and figure out how we can move together in truth and love.
You're my best friend in my head. No, I'm telling you, absolutely amazing. I wanted to know just a month or so ago, the Proud Boys lost a legal case in Washington, D.C. For defaming Metropolitan AME Church. And because they could not pay, they lost their trademark to a Black church. I am amazed that in larger space, the Proud Boys seem to be covered. They're not on the watch list. They're not vilified on Fox News. But on the flip side, Black Lives Matter is. Outside of the obvious, why do you think those two organizations are handled as polar opposites?
I mean, I think, that's a hard question because the obvious for me is very clear, right? I also think that there are people and individuals who are connected, sometimes behind the scenes, and are protective of individuals who are in places like leadership of organizations that we believe are terroristic. But I mentioned, I mean, we are an imminent threat to white supremacy. Right. And therefore, if organizations like that one are not, then of course they're going to be not only emboldened, but empowered. I love the fact that we are using the system to change the system in terms of lawsuits. Now, we are an organization that is not generally very litigious. We talk about the criminal injustice system all the time and what is done against Black people. We believe that that system needs to be dismantled. We believe that it was not built for us, certainly not by us. And so I'm usually not one to say, sue them and take their trademark and do what you need to do to make sure that they are crippled financially so that they cannot continue. I believe it was a brilliant strategic move, the way that it played out. And all the ways that we can do that, I think, are important. But to answer your question, I mean, the reality is it is obvious, right? It is that we are Black and we are disrupting the status quo, and people who have privilege are threatened by anyone who wants to dismantle that. And they will continue to attack us as long as they believe that we are taking a piece of their pie. I mean, it's really Western culture when we think about there not being enough, right? Right. I believe in abundance. I believe what we appreciates. I believe that in the power of collective community. I don't believe because you have, I cannot. But if you really get back to the nature of how this nation was built, it's over consumerism and capitalism. And therefore, when they see Black progress, the white outrage says, we have to dismantle that because it means they're coming from me, my family, my peace, my money. And sometimes, frankly, that's true. But I would love for us to be in a place where we can recognize that, we are, here for the liberation of Black people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're directly going to be attacking or taking away food off of your plate.
Do you think under this administration, Black Lives Matter, not in ideology, but in terms of target and intention and opposition, is this generation's Black Panther Party?
First, I have to shout out Sister Elaine Brown, who was the first chairwoman of the Black Panther Party.
That's right.
And I have sat at her feet and listened to her. And in fact, when I had the grassroots activists come to my house, you can Google it. You can Google my name in stalking. Sister Elaine Brown was the first one to come out and put out a very clear statement about how COINTELPRO dismantled the Black Panther Party.
That's where I was going.
Right? So we have so much to learn about the history of organizations like the Black Panther Party. I also want to say that we partnered with her organization in Oakland to help fund a building called the Black Panther. It's an $80 million building. We invested $1 million in it at Black Lives Matter. And it's not just an apartment complex. It is a beautiful opportunity for Black people. Yes, for Black people who have formerly been incarcerated, not only to live well, but also the bottom floor is Black-owned businesses, co-ops. It's a co-op model. So the residents in the building are actually making money from the building, the businesses on the ground floor.
Yes.
That's one of the strategic investments that we're making at Black Lives Matter. So to answer your question, yes, I do believe, that we must ensure that there is a commitment and learning from the radical nature of organizations like the Black Panther Party. But we also know, right, if past is prologue, who ended up coming in and taking that organization out.
Yeah.
I met with another member of the Black Panther Party. She was a former member. Now she actually works in a very large foundation. And she said to me, I want to tell you two things that we did not have. We did not have a faith practice, and we did not take care of ourselves.
Wow.
And so while I recognize that there are some very clear similarities and parallels about that movement, the radical nature of that movement, holding truth to power, and the legacy of that movement. I mean, the children's breakfast program in schools that still exists, at least as long as the USDA will still exist under this administration, came from the Black Panthers, right? And so there's a lot that they had to give in our community that people didn't give them credit for. But I do recognize that the federal government may consider us a threat in the same way, and has, that they did them.
I want you, a lot of people clearly know of Black Lives Matter, clearly have heard about controversy, but a lot of people are just being introduced to you. How did you become the chair?
I had my oldest son when I was in high school. I was 16 years old. And I was someone who was always ambitious. But when that happened, I needed community. I needed the power of community. I needed folks to give me support and invest in me, right? And so I actually learned from those people and started investing back in my community, first through a program called AmeriCorps. And to be completely honest, it's a program of the National Community Service. It's a government initiative where young people devote a year of their life to service, and in return, they get all kinds of leadership skills around nonprofits. They help build community, but also they get money for college. And at that point, they got free daycare. Nice. So I'm like, this checks all the boxes, right?
This is it.
Right, I'm going to do this thing. It's going to help me figure out a way to pay for college. But I didn't realize I was going to fall in love with service, right? I didn't realize that I was going to fall in love with this responsibility to my community, right? I mean, we know it's Martin Luther King who says that service, right, is the rent we pay to live on this earth. And I learned that, and I saw how my story of struggle actually empowered other young people, particularly young women who were potentially walking in my path. And so that was my first real job in the nonprofit space. And then after that, I actually moved into the foundation space. I worked for a very prominent foundation for 10 years. First, I was raising money, millions of dollars for Black communities. And then was elevated to build out chapters and organizations that started giving money away. So I became a philanthropic expert. And people hear philanthropic and philanthropy and they think that's money. But to break that down, it comes from the Greek philos, which is love, and anthropos, which is of humanity. So when I say I'm a philanthropic expert, it means I love Black people. I love us. And because I have been given so much, I have a responsibility to give back. I devoted my life to service, working in foundations, eventually elevated to an organization where I was working with Black students who needed to be mentored or wanted mentors. It received a multi-million-dollar grant from the U.S. Department of Justice under a mentoring initiative, and then stepped back and said, I'm raising my three boys. I want to do this in a way that I can actually make a living doing it. Because as you know, as a nonprofit leader, even my own finances have been questions. I have filed bankruptcy as a single mother who had $120,000 in debt. $60,000 of it was student loans.
Wow.
And I have learned from those situations. I've learned how to do better. And in fact, when I disclosed that I filed bankruptcy before I came on this board, much of the crisis management team and legal advisors who are pulling this board together said, that's why we chose you. We chose you not because you're trying to come here to be successful, because you already are, despite what you've been through.
I love it.
And you can take all that you've learned to ensure that you are legitimately communicating and building programs that our people are going through and that we need. And so that's what I have done. Not only worked for foundations, worked for organizations, all of it. I consider doing liberation work, but not necessarily on the front lines marching, right? And so I started my own company. It's called The Amplifiers. It's a philanthropic consulting firm after I left those two foundations. And what I say is I help people do good better. Right. And I've worked with organizations like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the National Cares Mentoring Movement, the African American Policy Forum, Kimberly Crenshaw, the coiner of CRT. Those have been my clients behind the scenes.
Yes.
I worked on a project in 2019. This is my direct involvement with Black Lives Matter, called Reform LA Jails. It had very similar leadership, complementary leadership in LA, although I lived in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And the goal of that campaign was to redirect money from the jail system, the LA County jail system, one of the largest mental health facilities in the world, to mental health initiatives.
Wow.
And they hired me to help do the communications work for that campaign behind the scenes. And in 2020, Measure R became law, and we passed it with 73% of the vote.
Amazing.
And so they saw that I may not have been on the front lines, right? But I was doing work strategically to build power in ways that had long-lasting impact. And so I remember in 2022 being in Atlanta and having a group of people in suits who came to sit and talk with me. And I said, why are y'all in Atlanta? And they said, we're here for you. We're rebuilding this board. And there were 10 people in a binder. I was one of them. My photo was there. My background was there. And they said, you are not only a mother who has raised 3 sons, 3 Black sons. You personally have a commitment. You have the professional acumen and also the passion and love for Black people to carry this forward. It's not going to be easy. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But none of this work is, and what that is worth it is. And I said, yes. It was actually my oldest son that I had when I was 16, my man of Morehouse.
Yes.
I say often my children are my mirror and my compass. And I remember him sitting in my room and saying, you know, Black Lives Matters is forming a new board, and they've come to me. And I didn't know at that point I was going to be voted board chair.
Right.
I thought I was going to be one of many people on this board to build it. And I looked at the finances and signed all the confidentiality paperwork. And he said, Mom, how can you not? You have been doing this work your entire life. You're built for this.
I love it.
And so it was my son, ultimately, who said to me, and I said, you know, I'm not a traditional activist in every sense of the word. And he said, but you're coming to this with a spirit of love. And you know, I said, well, I'm not someone who is necessarily ready for, you know, a fight. And I've had people in my love, people who I love in my life who have told me not all walls are broken down with fists.
Oof.
Right. And so I know for sure that it takes all of us. And I'm so proud. I am so proud and honored to serve in this role for as long as I am here, continuing to do the work of my company so that I can ensure that I make a living. I do good and I do well. Right. The things, the house that I live in, the cars that I have, that's from my business. Right. I want to be very clear. When people have said in protest in front of my house that I live where I live, I have receipts. Scroll back through my Instagram. I've been living there, right? But in the meantime, while I am doing this work, I am doing it because I know this is a calling, Dr. Bryant, on my life. It is something that I can't go to sleep without thinking about. And I didn't posture a position to get here, and that's why I make no apology for the divine appointment on my life. I know I'm here for a reason. I have a lot to give. I want to serve, and I'm going to do it through love as long as I can.
You are a blessing to this generation, a blessing to Black people. They don't know it yet. You're a blessing to America.
Thank you.
You are a part of the ingredients that this present age won't be able to articulate, but you are what will make America great. And so I am excited to breathe your oxygen and to be in your space and to see how it is that you create a revolution with class and with dignity. And I think that Black Lives Matter will be more needed in the next 4 years than it was in the last 4.
I am here to make sure it is so.
Yeah.
I am honored to be here.
Yeah.
I learn from you every day.
Thank you.
You embolden me through your truth telling, from whether it's the pulpit or the streets.
Yes.
I have referenced your sermons many times. And I too am honored to be in your presence, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to simply tell the truth. I tell people, fact check me. Please fact check me. Everything I say, I have receipts, and you have held me accountable in that regard. You've done your homework as it relates to me, and I'm just honored you give me the opportunity.
No, I'm grateful. I went on record behind your back. Now I'm going to say it in front of the whole world. I'm against the mansion until I stay there.
Yeah. All right.
When I can stay there, then it's good.
Film there.
Yeah, I want to film there.
We have a soundstage in the back.
We need to bring Lil Yachty.
You know?
To the mansion.
Oh, come
and go
on.
live.
And we don't even call it the mansion because
I call it the mansion.
We call it the creator's house.
I don't like the creator's house.
Yeah, I mean,
I like the whole idea.
Technically,
yeah, that's good.
It's got the square footage to qualify it.
But it feels good for Black people to have a mansion on the West Coast.
Tell me about it.
You have a house in Savannah.
Yeah.
Let's have a mansion in California.
And let's use it for us.
Yes.
Unapologetically. Let's use it for us.
James Baldwin talks about survivor's guilt, where you have to feel bad about doing well.
Yes.
And I think that just as a mark of pride that we've been able to do it. I'm appreciative that all of you all stay plugged in. Greetings to everybody except Lil Yachty. I want everybody to make sure that you are plugged into Let's Be Clear. I want you to share this message to anybody who has questions about Black Lives Matter. And all the more, I want you to share it with people who don't just come together for Black death, but want to mobilize for Black life. That's where we're on. That's where we're aiming. And I am glad to be sitting with our chairwoman. I pledge allegiance. Stay tuned and stay locked in. Make sure that you like, share, and follow, because for the rest of our days, we're going to be clear.